This video, we're going to be going back and revisiting the DC Universe Classics Wave 2 Classic Firestorm. I initially did this video way back in December 28th, 2009. Let's go ahead and get some dimensions going for Firestorm. He stands, if you technically count the tip of his fire, he stands a little over 7 inches tall. This would have also been the Wave 2, so it would have also been the Gorilla Grodd wave. A somewhat disappointing Grodd. I wish it would have been a little bit more comic heavy and not so much looking like a real gorilla, but I thought the figures all were decent enough from that particular wave. Now this is the classic Firestorm, really my personal favorite of the two Firestorms. There's also a modern Firestorm as well, but I kind of dig this one because it reminds me of old Superpowers Firestorm. Comes with a couple of little molecular constructs. You can see I've already taken the liberty of attaching them to his wrists. They just snap into place. There's this little gap right there. Let me show you what I'm talking about. There's a gap right there where this little bracelet, if you will, snaps into place. It does a pretty good job, but you know, when you're snapping it in, you feel like it doesn't give you nearly enough clearance that I feel like this could potentially, you know, bend or break in the process. The paint's pretty good on these, although, you know, there's this weird sense that there's no real precise method of painting this. They just kind of slopped paint all over areas. Such as the back section is all painted in orange. You got these little splotches of orange everywhere. You know, again, it's okay. It serves the purpose that it needs to serve. I read the fact that it's a molecular kind of construct. It looks pretty interesting. I mean, by contrast to the, say, like the Marvel Legends stuff, this is a very unique looking piece. It's not like the spell constructs that just was with every single magical character, and then not even magical characters from the Marvel Universe figures. Anywho's, let's have a look at classic Firestorm. I was going to say Spider-Man, now I'm thinking Marvel Legends. Here we have classic Firestorm looking superb. Kind of wanted to go back and, of course, have a look at some of these older figures. And essentially, basically all the ones I'm revisiting are all the ones that I've taken a personal liking to. Over the years, I have gotten rid of a fair number of the DC Universe Classic figures, but there are specific characters, such as Firestorm, such as Bane, such as the ones that you've seen in the other throwback videos that we've done recently. But particular ones like this are ones I want to kind of keep in my collection, and therefore this is why Firestorm was spared unfortunately, the grueling task of deciding what I wanted to actually part ways with. The figure is pretty good. I mean, it does have a little few hiccups here and there. Precisely, I would say one of the culprits are non-matching paints. Firestorm seems to be really bad for not paints that really go well, and they just seem to kind of mix and match what they want to use. For example, the lower areas of the legs, you can see that he has a much more vibrant kind of orangey red, which is a complete contrast to the areas from his knee upward, where you've got a more darker tone of that color and some additional airbrushing here of almost like a grayish red color. So like this little area here doesn't really jive with this little area here, and then you've got all these little dabbings of paint splotches. Some oranges don't match with the yellows. You've got some areas such as the grays and some extra little blobs of just crap all over the thighs. This little area here of the thigh, obviously this is the messier of the two sides. This is the cleaner, pristine side. But again, it doesn't quite match to the areas of the middle where now you're adding some extra shading and extra color. It just doesn't make much sense to me. I really wish that they actually would have kept the more brighter yellows as the main go-to colors for the figure. So like these kind of colors, even like the boots, the bottom feet don't match the calves, don't match the hands, don't match basically the torso. It's just somewhat all over the place. And you may ask yourself, despite that, or maybe not despite that, but why would you like a figure that has such imperfections as Firestorm here? Again, the main reasoning for keeping this figure, and one of the main reasons for wanting to look at him again, is because he reminds me of like the old Superpowers Firestorm. And it actually was One of the first Superpowers figures that I actually had as a kid. I mean, I had a strange collection growing up. My grandparents would periodically pick me up some Superpowers figures. I think there was also sometimes the gas stations, of all places. Gas stations were a really unique thing back in the 80s. You could get cups, you could get glass mugs, you could get GoBots, you could get Superpowers figures, all from gas stations. Generally it was Shell, if anybody remembers Shell, or if anybody remembers this tale that I'm telling. But a lot of times those little gas stations would be the ones where you would get some real goodies as a kid. It was actually a joy to go get gas. I would say, can we go get gas? Can we go get gas? And then, of course, come back with a GoBot or a Superpowers. But generally, what I would end up having in my collection was like just the strangest of collections. It was like the Red Tornadoes. It was the Martian Manhunters. It was Firestorm. I never really had a Batman or a Superman, a Wonder Woman, or even a Joker growing up. I had all kind of like the B-list or C-list characters. And maybe that for that reason and that reason alone is why I have such a soft spot when it comes to a character such as Firestorm. I like the coloring and how they made a translucent flame effect coming out from the base of his where his brain would basically be, like the forehead area. And as you can see, it starts at like a dark orangey red, and it transitions nicely to almost a clear or somewhat translucent yellow. The face sculpt again is pretty good, very reminiscent of classic Firestorm. The side of his neck is debatable as to, I don't know what color they were really planning, because like the head sculpt, the paint on the red is completely different, once again, than the paint in the neck. The front deco is really nicely done here on the torso. I like that it's utilizing a new sculpt rather than just a go-to. You know what? The one thing I have to praise Marvel, well, DC Universe figures for versus Marvel Legends is the fact that back in the day, they weren't afraid to come out with new sculpts. So like Firestorm here, for example, had a brand new sculpt. It wasn't simply just a painted over, same body as some of the other Marvel Universe figures have had. So, something can be said for a figure this old, that at least I think it still does things pretty good, actually, in all things considered. Like the sculpting also of his sleeve, how you can see the little folds and creases of the fabric. New sculpting on the hands, a nice touch. And of course this, being all raised, goes a long way for me, as opposed to just slapping some paint on there and calling it front deco. Again, I really like the head sculpt. Let's run through his posability. His head is on a ball joint, a hinge up and down. Shoulders hinge outward, not hindered at all by the sides of his shoulder pads. You can basically rotate the forward motion of his arm to about there. Same can be said for the back motion. Unfortunately, though, it does butt up against, and this is like hard plastic. It's not like a soft, pliable plastic. So it does get a little stuck-sies when you try to move the arms. You get a rotation on the bicep, a hinge on the elbow area, swivel on the wrist, and still you get your ab crunch. I'm surprised actually that this figure still has really stiff joints. Nothing is loose on this figure. He has a waist swivel, forward and back motion on the legs, a split. You've seen this before. A split on the legs, a swivel on the thigh, hinge on the knee, and a hinge on the foot. No ankle pivot. No, not here, man. You don't get ankle pivots. Well, you did on some of them, but you don't get ankle pivots generally when it comes to the DC Universe figures. All in all, it's a bit of a train wreck when it came to the paint job, but there's something to be said for Firestorm. Maybe he may not resonate with every single collector, but maybe if you grew up in the 80s and you had a Superpowers collection, maybe a figure like this, when he was released into the DC Universe line, still makes your, maybe not your top 10, but I would say at least your top 20 figure list. He certainly makes, I would say, just kind of thinking in my head, I don't know if I would say he makes my top 10, but he certainly makes my top list of favorite DC Universe figures, and all the more reason why I want to do a revisit or throwback of Firestorm here. Today we were revisiting Firestorm from way back in 2009. I didn't keep the Grodd. I don't think I still have Grodd. I think I might have given him away. But there's actually a couple of Wave 2 figures that I still have in my collection. Firestorm of here, of course, being my number one. Or maybe not my number one, but he still is part of my collection. If you guys like these little revisits, let me know down below. Maybe let me know as well which DC Universe figures would you like to see me actually redo in a new video. Again, if you guys haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below. You can also head over to my playlist that actually says Throwbacks. It actually says Throwback. I think it says Throwbacks re-reviews, and you can go back and see all the re-released or revisited figures from my collection. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.